Evra Corporation versus Swiss Bank Corporation. In this case, Evra Corporation entered into a 2-year contract with a Brazilian company in order to supply steel scrap. To do that, they chartered a ship for a period of 2 years where a daily rate was fixed and an advance had to be paid in a semi-monthly basis. Through the months, the charter rate kept increasing, which was to the advantage of Evra Corporation since they only had to pay the fixed amount. But then, the charter agency terminated the contract with Evra Corporation because they failed to make a payment within the given time because the payment was sent through mail. And then an arbitration panel was instituted and the contract was reinstated. But then again, after a few months, Evra Corporation failed to pay the amount within the given time and the charter company cancelled the contract. So then Evra Corporation sued Swiss Bank, which was negligent and because of which the transaction didn't go through within the given period of time. So the court ordered Swiss Bank to pay a compensation for the loss, which amounted to $2.1 million. But then Swiss Bank appealed to a higher court, which stated that the bank was not liable for this because the company, that is Evra Corporation, did not give a notice to the bank about the special circumstances in this case.
In both contract and tort, rules have been developed to measure the remoteness of damage, and perhaps in no other area of law have there been so many attempts to formulate ideal rules in an effort to limit damages. Judge Posner used the English case of Hadley versus Baxendale to limit Hyman Michaels' recovery of lost profits. Now moving on to the facts of Hadley versus Baxendale. In Hadley, the owners of a flour mill carried a broken shaft to the defendant's shipping office for delivery to the manufacturer to be used as a pattern from which to make a new shaft. The delivery was delayed for an unreasonable time, and as a result, the millers received the new shaft later than expected and incurred a loss of profits. Baron Alderson, who delivered the judgment in Hadley, believed an explicit rule was needed to guide the jury in its determination of the amount of damages to award. The result of Alderson's effort was a rule limiting defendant's liability for consequential damages to those damages within the contemplation of the parties at the time the contract was made. The effect of Hadley was to structure a more favorable rule for defendants, a change from the prior law which was giving juries broad discretion. The general rule prior to Hadley gave the jury wide discretion to determine those damages that were the natural and necessary consequences of the breach. Hadley, not based on any precedent, applied a more rigorous standard to the natural consequences test by limiting the availability of consequential damages to those cases in which the defendant had contemplated such losses at the time the contract was made. As we are done with the standard analysis of Hadley versus Baxendale, we shall move on to analyzing the Evra Corporation case. Posner's application of Hadley to limit Hyman Michaels' recovery of lost profits involves a shift from the traditional standard of Hadley to a standard which directly reflects Posner's economic approach to the law. This particular shift requires a court to make an analysis of the risk preventive measures that could have either been taken by the Swiss bank or Hyman Michaels himself. Theoretically, Posner's economic goal of law is to maintain efficiency through value maximizing. Posner explained both these terms, value as well as efficiency. He stated that the terms value and efficiency are technical terms. Efficiency means exploiting economic resources in a way that value is maximized. Here, value refers to the human satisfaction which is measured by the total willingness of all consumers to pay for a particular good or a service or both. Therefore, Posner believes Hadley is part of the law's effort to promote the efficient allocation of resources, which requires that consequential damages be limited to coincide with the party's expectation damages. According to Posner, consequential damages should be denied when the loss is not foreseeable. Why? Because an unforeseeable loss is not considered a part of a party's expectation damages. Foreseeability for Posner, however, merely involves a determination of which party is the least costly risk avoider and to award or not to award damages on that basis so as to create an incentive to take the precaution. In other words, to put it simply, it is efficient to deny consequential damages to a party who can more cheaply avoid the risk but who is unwilling to pay for the necessary precautions. Posner links Hadley with the foreseeability rules which are found in tort. Posner noted the relationship between contract and tort law, and he revealed how the traditional foreseeability rules in tort now aptly corresponds to the economic standard that is assigned to Hadley.
The principal effect of Posner's analysis is to broaden the applicability of the said Hadley versus Baxendale rule. And this can be done in two limbs. First limb being by shifting the focus from primarily analyzing the defendant's knowledge to balancing both the parties' opportunities to efficiently avoid such risks. And the second limb being that altering the time when the analysis takes place, or from when the contract has actually been made to when a breach of such a contract has occurred. As Posner's example and his illustration, we see that there's a shift in focus from considering what the defendant knew to determine which party could cheaply avoid such a risk and insure against such risk. It does invite more of a flexible approach for determining the consequential damages than in the traditional Hadley versus Baxendale rule. Furthermore, we see that in the Evra Corporation case, Hyman Michaels not only had the time to remedy the effect of Swiss Bank's negligence, but also the company knew that wiring funds directly to Bank de Paris would frustrate Pandora owners' attempt to cancel such a contract. However, since Posner's economic theory is solely concerned to determine which party can avoid the loss at the least cost, the results in the Evra Corporation case would arguably be the same, notwithstanding Hyman Michaels' unique position of such knowledge. Whatever value Posner's test brings to the area of consequential damages is a test that is merely focusing on which party can avoid the loss with the least number of costs. But this will ignore in its application the presence of other important variables in its said contract. The electronic fund transfer situation highlights the number of problems that can occur in application of Posner's theory in, say, the said case. The nature of such electronic funds transfer situation allows very little opportunity for individual parties to contemplate the actual risk involved in transferring such funds. The transferring bank will have little to, in fact, any knowledge to foresee whether this particular consequences may result if it fails to promptly comply with the transfer order. But we can also say that the transferring bank can, however, predict the frequency in which such an error would occur, and we can be charged with a reasonable notice that a failure to comply with such a transfer will undoubtedly have some financial repercussions on the customer. Now we see that to require actual knowledge of every possible consequences will continuously insulate the transferring bank's liability, since under Posner's reasoning that preventing unforeseeable circumstances or consequences is not efficient. In the said Evra Corporation case, it's evident that the Swiss bank was not overly concerned with the individual liability, but it is relying on the court's holding that the Swiss bank will have little to no incentive to alter its business conduct in the future. Likewise, although Hyman Michaels was probably aware of the consequences of failing to pay on time, the company had little, in fact, any idea that the probability of the Swiss bank losing such telex message and failing to transfer such requested funds would have such huge consequences. This lack of knowledge seemed to equally negate the duty on the part of Hyman Michaels to affirmatively protect such interests. Now, under the general foreseeability standards, it would seem, in fact, unreasonable to charge the Swiss bank with a notice that the consequences for failing to properly handle such transfer, as ordered by the district court, in fact, did hold. Of course, Posner's idea of foreseeability was more restricted in the given case, focusing only on which one party can avoid the loss at the very least cost. Furthermore, we can see that the Posner's economic approach also assumes that judges and the juries are so insulated so as to objectively determine the most efficient method. This assumption, however, though, fails to it not only ignores the distinction between law and action, but also it fails to explain why the court system should favor efficiency. It would appear that in the end result would go into its further limit limit the role of such jury, as we see juries in American courts. Arguably, that the jury in the district court had said that, and they even found that the Swiss bank was in fact indeed negligent, and indicated that the belief of such consequences would in fact foreseeable in the part of the Swiss bank.
The economic function of contract law is to facilitate exchange by overpowering transaction costs. There are many rules with respect to the enforceability of a contract. If we take these rules together, they provide certain functions. First, any contract which is entered into must be in a way that increases efficiency. Second, the cost of administering these contracts must be as low as possible. The third function is to allocate risks that are not expressly allocated by the parties. In this respect, contract law serves as a gap-filling function. Gap-filling pervades contract law, but is dealt with most expressly when considering issues of ambiguity, breach, the proper remedy, and whether one party's non-performance will be excused. In the case of Hadley versus Baxendale, it determines how the parties allocated the risks of consequential damages. From an economic point of view, it makes sense to allocate that risk to the party who can control the event and make sure that the risk doesn't take place.